This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so I think in last session, just we started understanding about the Apex, one of the programming language. So which is similar to C++ and Java, core Java. Okay, but it's not that you should know already about Java or some other language. We are understanding from the basics. Okay, so we started understanding about the different types of statements which we deal on day to day when you write the program. Okay, so one of the first type is memory statement. Okay, so why we define the memory, right? When you write the program in general, the purpose of writing the program, we provide some data as input. By applying the logic on that data, it should give the result, right? So it's like that. That's the main purpose of writing the program. So when you deal with that input data or whatever the data system calculated, to hold that we have to allocate the memory. To allocate the memory, we use these variables. We define variables, right? So to define the variable, the syntax, which type of data you want to store, and also uh, which type of data, and based on that we define by choosing that particular data type, and you can also assign some default values, and to end the statement we use semicolon. Okay, each and every statement ends with semicolon. So that is what we discussed. But so far whatever we discussed, all these are the primitive data type, meaning, so when you define the memory by using the primitive data type, directly the value whatever you want to assign, we can assign. It will store into the memory whatever system allocated. So that is primitive type, call by value. That means directly the value whatever we assign, it will store into the memory whatever system allocates. Okay, but we also have non-primitive data types. So here I am saying we can consider standard objects. We have many standard objects: campaigns, leads, accounts, contacts, opportunities, cases. We have some custom objects created. We can consider those objects. Object is nothing but database table, right? We can consider all those as non-primitive types. So when you deal with any non-primitive data type, directly assigning value is not possible. Directly here, this is like one row in a table. Okay, so for example, I'm opening one of the Excel sheet. So let's say here we have a table. Let's say we have the first name, last name, email. So all these are the different columns in the contact table. Just assume that. So when I say one row, right, it's like this. To populate one row like this, to allocate the memory for that, we use new operator and like this. So when you assign like this, what exactly it will assign into this variable? It will assign the location. This will be somewhere in the memory. Where this is located, where this information is located, that reference will be assigned when you deal with the non-primitive data type. That's the difference. Just for now, just understand this. Slowly, we'll understand other things. Okay. So, and also we have one more type called S object. Okay, this S object is generic to hold either standard object or custom object information. Okay, suppose in some situations we don't know with which object we deal. Okay, so when we say S object, into this S object, you can store any object information. Let's say I want to store account information, you can store. I want to store case information, you can store. In a generic way, it can accept any object information. It can be a standard object or the custom object. It is only generic to capture or to store the standard object or custom object information, not any other types. Let's say I want to store number value, it is not possible, right? So this is generic to hold either standard object or custom object information. We cannot assign any other types. That is the S object. Generic, in generic way, if you don't know which table, that table means object, which table we are dealing, either standard object or the custom object, that time we deal with S object. So mostly people compare object, right? Object, I told that object is generic. So this is more generic. This can accept anything. Even this can also accept that non-primitive type. The account and contact also it can accept. Okay. When compared to that, this is only for the objects, either standard object or custom object to hold. We use the S object. And also one more type, Apex class. Going forward, we create Apex class. For now, still we did not create. When we create that time, we'll come back and discuss about this. We can also consider our Apex program as a data type, one of the non-primitive data type. So that time after we create, I'll come back and explain about this. Okay. So this is about the first type of statement, right? A simple thing. So we need to mention the data type, space, give the name for the memory. Technically, we refer this as variable. We define variables to hold the values. Okay. So that's the first type. Now let's understand about the other types of statements. Okay. The other types of statements, arithmetic and the logical statements. On day to day, when you deal with a program, it's very, very common to assign the value, to add, to subtract. We do all those things. So to understand that, the first one, assignment operator. Assignment operator, one of the first type. Okay. You know, assignment operator is nothing but equal to, already we used this one in our examples, right? So if you want to assign value, we use the assignment operator, right? Let's say here I'm saying integer, right? So I'll say quantity, right? So you can assign, maybe you can define the variable like this. Quantity is one of the variable, and you can also assign later, right? Quantity is equal to, so I'm giving 100, right? Like this. So now what it is doing, the right hand side value, whatever the value present here, that it is assigning to this quantity, one of the variable. Okay. So let's say I'm defining one more integer variable, count. Now I'm saying count is equal to quantity. Now if you do like this, what will happen? Right hand side, whatever the value present in this quantity variable, it's not that it is a so how we need to understand this one, inside this memory, the quantity variable, whatever the value is there, that value it will assign to this variable count. That's the meaning of this statement. Okay. So something like this you cannot do, you know, right? So this is meaningless. right? We can assign the value into memory. Memory like this you cannot do. Okay, just with some practice you'll get to know all those things. Okay, so this is about the assignment operator. Mainly to assign the value, we use the assignment operator. The next one, arithmetic operators. Arithmetic operators to perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and many more. We use these operators. So again, we can classify these operators into again some subcategories. Unary operator. Okay, unary operator means it deals with only one value and one operator. Right? So that is unary operator. In general, when you see some existing programs, it's very common we see something like this. So when you see like this, what is the meaning of this one? Internally, the meaning of that one is I is equal to I plus 1. That's the meaning. So if you want to increment the value by 1, so any variable, if you want to increment the value by 1, what we do, we add plus plus, right? Suppose say I have integer number 1 equal to 0, right? If I say number 1 plus plus, what is the meaning? We are incrementing the number 1 by 1. Every time when this statement executes, the value of the number 1 will be incremented by 1. That's the meaning. In the same way, minus minus also we can use. If you use minus minus, the meaning is the value will be decremented by 1 every time. Okay, now if you see, this is one value, one operator. So we call this as unary operator. Okay, in the programs, it is very common. We see something like this. So that time, just understand it is incrementing by 1 or maybe decrementing by 1, like that. That is one of the example of the unary operator. Okay, if you want to see practically, quickly, it won't take much time, right? So I'm opening developer console. So once you log into your developer edition account, open developer console. Once you open developer console, click on debug. So here we have debug. Click on debug. Open execute anonymous window. Click on that one. So here you can write the logic and understand how it works. Okay. Now maybe to show you, I'm defining integer. Right? Integer is the data type. I want to store the number. I is the name of the variable I'm giving. Is equal to 0. I'm giving a variable I value as 0 by default. Now I'm incrementing this one by I plus plus. Right? Initially I value is 0. After this statement executes, the I value become 1. Right? So we'll say system.debug. Right? So I'm just printing that I value. Okay, now just open log, click on execute, click on debug only. Okay, value 1, right? So maybe here while printing, just I want to see like this, right? This is a string, I value colon space, like that I want to see in the log. Then strings we enclose inside the single quote. For a string, if you want to concatenate anything, can be a number or any other string or anything, any variable, the value which is present in the variable, if you want to concatenate, say plus and provide that variable. So that for this it is concatenated, and while seeing, if you see I value colon space, after that we are seeing value present in this I, right? Now if I decrement this, right, and again I am printing that value, again I am printing. Now what will be the I value here? 0, right? Execute. So I want you to practice like this. Right? These are small statements. So click on debug only, and if you see value is 0. Okay. So if you want to open the log automatically, you need to check this. Okay. In case if you don't check this, where you can see the log under logs, here under logs, here you can see. Okay. So just understand that point. So this is one of the example. Just I am keeping here. Okay. The next type, binary operator. Binary operators. Binary operator deals with two values and one operator. One operator will combine the values of two values it will combine. So one of the example, so let's say I'm giving like this integer, so number 1 comma number 2 comma number 3 result. Let's say I'm defining like this. Okay, so let's say number 1 I'm giving 10, number 2 I'm giving 20, number 3 I'm giving 30. Okay, so result is equal to number 1 minus number 2 plus number 3. So I'm giving like this. Even though it is a big expression, what will happen internally? System only take two values and do the subtraction. Whatever the result is there, that it will add. But when you give like this, first which one it will execute? This will be executed and subtracted, or this will be executed and added. Okay, so that we don't know. Okay, so number 1, number 2. So if you want to know about that, there is a operator precedence. We should know that. People don't want to know about that. So to make sure that, so I want to subtract these two first, and after that I want to add. So what we do, we give like this. So when you give like this, system will make sure that it will subtract this number 1 and the number 2, and after that it will add the number. So that's what will happen. Okay. So even though we have many values and operators, internally it takes only two values and do the calculation. The result it will be added to the other value. So that's why we call this one as a binary operator. Even though there is a complex expression, at a time system will take only two values. The result again it will add. So like that it will continue and do the calculation. Okay, so that is about this example. Okay. So now maybe if you want to execute and see, you can do that. I recommend you to always execute and understand how it is behaving and proceed. So that way you will get some interest. Okay. So let's say I'm just executing, just I'm right printing that result. The result should be 10 minus 20, right? Minus 10. Minus 10 plus 30, right? 20. The result should be 20. So execute. Sorry. Yeah. So now if you see, click on debug, right? 20. It is working. So this is the way. One of the next type, ternary operator. Ternary operator. Okay. So ternary operator, we give a condition. If the condition is true, so let's say I'll say true path. Whatever we write here, that will execute. Else, whatever the condition we give, if that is not true, it will execute false path. That means whatever we write here, that will be executed. Okay. So let's take one example. Okay. So here, so maybe same thing. We have all these variables, and I'm checking in the result. Result is equal to, I'm checking if the number 1 is greater than number 2. This is the condition. Number 1, 10 greater than 20. If that is true, right? Question mark. So what I want to assign number 1 to this result. That means this value will be assigned to this result variable. Else, if the condition is not true, I am assigning number 2. Now, as per this current data, 10 greater than 20. No. It takes this. Number 2 will be assigned to result. We'll see the result as 20. Right? So that's what we see. When you print the result and execute, you see 20. Right? So let's say here I'm giving 100. 100 greater than 20. Yes. Since 100 greater than 20, so here this will be executed 100, and you will see the result as 100. Right? Execute. Click on debug only. 100 you are seeing. Okay. It's like that. So this is one of the example of the ternary operator. Ternary operator deals with 3 values. This is one value, this is one value, this is one value. 2 operators. This is one operator, this is one operator. That is a ternary operator. Okay. So to deal with based on the condition, if there is a requirement to execute one statement, that time we use this ternary operator. Going forward, we'll see a few more examples on this. Okay. That is about the ternary operator. The next one, again, the main category. All these are the subparts as part of the arithmetic operator. Maybe here I'm only dealing with plus minus. Same way you can also deal with the multiplication. If you use star, it will multiply and give the result. Okay. The other type, arithmetic assignment. Arithmetic assignment operator means we combine arithmetic operator and assignment operator together. So for example, maybe same thing, same example. Okay. So if I give number 1 plus equal to number 3. So what is the meaning of this one? Instead of writing, this is comment, right? Slash slash means comment. The rest of the line will be commented. Okay. So internally, how we need to understand, number 1 is equal to number 1 plus number 3. The short form for this is this. Okay. If you don't want to write like this, in the short way, we give like this. This is arithmetic operator. This is assignment operator. So even though you are not comfortable with this, you can use this. But if you see some existing code which is written by someone, at least that time we should know, right? So that's why we should know about these kind of expressions, right? So here, if I give star, it will multiply, right? Number 1 is equal to number 1 multiplied by number 3. 100 multiplied by 30, 3000. Here, when you print n1 value, it should be 3000. Execute. Click on debug only, and if you see 3000, you are seeing. This is the way. Okay. Just go back, and I'm just keeping for your reference. In this place, plus, minus, all those things you can keep and practice. Okay. The next type, relational operators. Relational operators. We use these operators for comparison purpose. To compare, double equal to, single equal to is for the assignment, double equal to for the comparison. It compare two values and return either true or false, right? So double equal to, okay, comma, not equal to means like this, okay, or like this. Either we can use like this or like this for not equal to, okay. And one more, greater than, right? So less than equal to, greater than equal to. So all these are the relational operators, okay. So maybe let's take some examples on understanding this. So just here I'm saying, just removing this, number 1 is equal to number 2. I'm just comparing, right? Both are not equal, right? The relational operators will produce either true or false. Since both are not equal, it returns false. You will see in the log, it will be printing the false value. Execute and see. Execute and see, right? So we are saying false. In the same way for other things, right? Let's say not equal to, let's say this one will be true. So based on our comparisons, it returns either true or false. Okay, those are the relational operators. This is one of the example for that. Okay, now if I want to combine, right? If I want to combine two conditions, so let's say number 1 is not equal to number 2. Yes, correct. But so one more condition, number 1 should be less than number 3. Okay, that also, both conditions should be satisfied. So if you have multiple conditions, if you want to combine, when you are combining, you want to apply AND or OR. Both conditions should be satisfied or any one of the condition is satisfied. So what is the requirement? Based on that, we combine this with either AND or OR. So those we call as logical operators. Okay, we have the logical operators. Mainly logical operators deals with AND or NOT. Okay, but in Apex directly we cannot use AND. Okay, in Apex to use AND we use like this. In Apex to use OR we use like this. In Apex to use NOT we use like this. Okay, so these are the logical operators, AND or NOT. Okay, so just understand that. Now let's see how we use this. So let's say the requirement is AND, both should be satisfied, right? We give like this. Okay, if both are satisfied, then the result will be true, right? Now if you see here, N1 100 not equal to 20, correct, true. This will be true, right? This will become true. N1, right, 100 less than 30, no, false. True, false. When you apply with AND condition, true, false means the final result will be false. AND means all conditions should be satisfied. You will see the result as false. Okay, like that there are many combinations, right? So if you want to play with that, so let's say both are true. both are true, final result is true. If any one of the value is false, the result will be false, right? So let's say here one value is false and one value is true. Finally, the result is false. If everything is false, again the result will be false. So this is how end means all conditions should be satisfied. If all are true, then only it becomes true. Otherwise, it becomes false. So if you execute same thing, you should see in the log. It should print same thing, these things in the log. Execute, click on debug only, and if you see here, true, false, 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 like that. So same thing when you deal with R, right? R means any one of the condition is true, it becomes true, right? So here I am using R. Are true? Yeah, true. Any one of the condition is true, the final condition will be true, right? Any one condition out of multiple true, the final result will be true. If everything is false, then it will be false. So like that, the R operator will work. Okay. So not means reverse. Okay. Maybe here, if I say not of true, this becomes false, right? In the same way, when you apply not for false, that becomes true, like that. Okay. So just understand this. Execute. Click on debug only. So from here, this is for R, right? From here, first to three true, after that false, right? And last two for this. Not of true is false, not of false is true. It's working. Okay. So this is the way we need to understand about the logical operators. Okay. So this I'm printing for our reference. This time here I'm pasting. That's it. Okay, these are the different types of arithmetic operators, arithmetic and logical statements. On day to day, we deal with these statements. Okay, so mainly these relational operators and these logical operators. For the comparison, the result of this will be either true or false. Okay, so these things we use in the conditional operators. So conditional operator means when you write, let's say in a program, we are writing 100 lines of code. Some of the statements I want to execute only if the particular condition satisfied. Let's say there are 10 statements. I want to execute only if a particular condition satisfied. To check those conditions, we use these conditional statements. Okay. In Apex, right, one of the easiest way to deal with the conditional statements is using if conditions. Okay. So there are different flavors of the if conditions. So simple if, one of the conditional statement. So how exactly it works? Maybe to show that, I'm just removing all this. So maybe same thing here I'm keeping. Simple if means we give if condition. Okay. Condition, let's say I'm giving n1 is greater than n2. Its number one value 100 is greater than 20. That time it will enter inside. Right. So system dot debug. So just I want to print like this. Number one is greater than number two. If the condition is not satisfied, it won't execute. Only if it is satisfied, it executes. Right? Now here I am making n1 as 10. It won't execute this. After executing, you don't see that log. You don't see that whatever we are printing in the log. Right? So let me execute this. Click on debug only. Nothing is there, right? Now it will print because condition is satisfied. 100 is greater than 20. Now it enters inside and execute. Okay, these are the conditional statements. This is one of the example. Simple if. Okay, so let's say if this condition is not satisfied, right? Let's say it is like this. Condition is not satisfied, right? Else means if whatever we are expecting, if the condition is not satisfied, in else scenario, we are going to execute some set of statements. We keep those here, right? So here I'll say n1 is not greater than n2. Something like this I'm printing in the else. Okay, now if you execute 10 greater than 20, no, it will execute this part and we'll see this. Okay, execute, debug only, n1 is not greater than n2. Okay, so this is for our testing, right? That's why I'm using ABC, n1, n2, something like that. But in the project, we have to give the meaningful names. We'll see going forward. So that is, we say if else. For that example is this one. Okay. And if you want to check for multiple conditions, let's say this is not satisfied, right? Client want to check for one more condition. There is a requirement to check for one more. Is n1 is greater than 15? Just I'm checking. Is n1 is greater than 15? No, right? If it is greater than 15, it will enter inside and it will execute this. So maybe I'm printing like this. Okay. So one more condition. Maybe is n1 is greater than or equal to 10. Right? This will be satisfied. Right? It will enter inside. So when you have like this multiple conditions, you are keeping this condition. If this is not satisfied, you want to check for one more condition. If that is satisfied, it should execute that. And it should not check for remaining. It won't check for remaining. If this fails, then only it will execute this block and it will enter inside. If this is executed, it won't enter into that. So out of all these blocks, any one of the block will be executed. Okay. So how people are thinking, let's say I'm adding one more. Is it greater than equal to 5? Right? So what do you think? Will it enter into both? No. Okay. Even though, right, 10 greater than is equal to 10. Correct. It will enter inside. Once it executes here, it won't check for other conditions. Okay. Don't think that it will also 10 greater than equal to 5, but it won't check when you deal with the else if condition. Any one of the block will be executed. Okay. So let's execute and see. If you execute, it should enter inside of this. Right? Execute and see n1 greater than or equal to 15. Sorry. So this is n1, right? Line number 9. Okay. So here I need to give 10, right? Execute. Now it is executing, right? Here I think I gave something wrong. This is the way. Okay. Copy. That's what I'm saying. So as per the current data, these two are satisfied, right? 10 is greater than or equal to 10, and 10 is greater than or equal to 5. Whichever the condition satisfied first, it enters into that one and execute. It won't check for the further conditions. So that's what, in such a way it will work. Okay. So that part we call as else if statements. Okay. Just I'm keeping here. So let's say my requirement is either this is satisfied or not satisfied. I also want to check for this one. Okay. If you want like that, we should not use this else. Right? We keep all if conditions one after other. Okay. So that time, if this is satisfied, it will enter inside. If this is satisfied, it will enter inside. Right? Both will be printed now. Okay. So execute and see. Click on debug only. Now if you see, so n1 is greater than or equal to 10, n1 greater than or equal to 5. So it is working. Okay. This is the way we need to use in case if we have a situation to execute everything. We call this as if series. Okay, so one more thing, nested if. Right, let's say this condition we have, I'm placing this one inside this. Right, this should be executed only if this outer condition is satisfied. Otherwise, it should not execute. So in those kind of situations, we go with this nested if. Right, inside this maybe you can also use if else, if all those things you can use. In general, if you give like this, people say it is nested if. Okay, so now it will be printing both now also, right? So execute, debug only. If you see both are printed, right? This is about the nested if. Nested if. Okay, so that's it. We have one more conditional statement, switch when, but for now I don't want to explain because we are starting newly. Slowly, when we deal with the advanced things, that time we'll see. Okay, for now, with all these if conditions, you can manage achieving any kind of requirement. Okay. The next type, controlling or looping statements. Okay. So if there are statements and if you want to execute the statements again and again, let's say I want to execute the statements 100 times by supplying different type of data. In those kind of situations, we go with the looping statements. Okay. So far, if you have any questions, you can ask. So any questions on understanding these, you can ask. Okay. The controlling or looping statements I am explaining now. So here mainly we use, maybe I am listing out all the loops, but on day to day which one we use more, I'll also explain. Okay. The first one, while loop. The other one, do while. When compared to these two, most of the times we use for loop. In for also there are two flavors. Index based for loop, and we have for each loop. When we say the for loop is for each, I'll explain. Okay, so mostly we use this, but we also need to know about while and do while. Okay, so all these types we use to execute the statements multiple times. Okay, so now while, choose while. So how it works? First we give condition, initialization, the looping variable initialization. So later while, we give some condition for the while loop, and the statements, whatever you want to execute, those statements, we need to make sure to give increment or decrement operator to increment or decrement the loop variable. So this is the just syntax how we define. Okay, so let's see here. Integer. In general, looping variables, we start with I, right? Whenever you want to define a loop, it's very common. We use I. But if you want to give some other name, that is also fine. But as a standard, people use I. Let's say inside one loop, if you are introducing one more loop, people use J, I, J, K, L, like that. Okay. So I want to write a loop. I need one variable to hold the count, how many times the loop is executed, giving I. The initial value I am giving as 0. This is the initialization. Now while. So what is the condition? Right? So until that condition satisfied, keep on, it will execute. Okay. Here the condition what I am giving, I less than 10. That means until I value becomes 10 or greater than 10, keep on, this loop will execute. That's the meaning. Okay. So inside that, let's say I'm printing that value, right? System.debug. So what is the I value? I'm just printing. And if you don't include either increment or decrement, right? So at some point of time, this condition should be spoiled. Otherwise, there is no ending for this loop. It will try to execute infinite times. That is not acceptable. At runtime, that means when you execute the code, maybe while saving, it won't throw any error. While executing, it will find that it is executing infinite times. After some point of time, you will see timeout, right? So there are governor limits on Salesforce platform. It is not that it is unlimited. Okay. So there is a timeout of 10 seconds by default. When you execute the Apex code, the code should be executed within 10 seconds. Otherwise, it will throw error. So like that. So there are some limits like that, and those things will hit. Now, if you see how much time it is taking, finally it will see one of the error. The error which we see at runtime, right? If you see the CPU time limit exceeded, right? So the errors which we get at runtime, we call those as exceptions. Okay, we are getting a exception. These kind of things will happen, right? It's very dangerous. Now, just here, make sure to increment. Now, if you increment, what will happen? First time 0 less than 10. It will print 0. It will be incremented by 1. 1 less than 10. It will print it, and again it becomes 2. 2 less than 10, like that. Once I becomes 10, 10 less than 10 fails. It will stop the loop. So like that it will work. Okay, we should be careful while dealing here. Okay. Now in the result we see it is printing 0 to 9, right? So 0 to 9, total 10 times the loop will be executed. Execute. Click on debug on. Okay. 0 to 9. Right? If you want from 1 to 10, that is also fine, right? So you'll say I is equal to 1 and I less than or equal to 10, right? So why we start with the 0? Going forward, we have some concepts. List, right? To hold multiple values, we define list. When you have, let's say there are 10 elements in a list. List index starts with 0. So that's why people try to use from 0. But if you want, you can also change as per the requirement. It's your wish. Once you know the syntax, how you want to deal, how you want to achieve the requirement, we give that and we achieve, right? So it's like that. Okay, so mostly we follow this, just keep the same thing. Now, how the do while loop will work? Okay, just a slight change. In the do while loop, here we use do while we keep at the end. This also gives the same result. It also prints 0 to 9. Then what is the difference? Now let's execute and see. You will see it is also giving 0 to 9, right? 0 to 9 it is printed. So when we see the difference, so let's say here I'm giving I value as 100, right? 100 less than 10, no. Even though the condition is not satisfied, it is guaranteed to execute all the statements one time. If there is a requirement to execute all the statements at least for one time, and later it should check for the condition, in those situations we use do while. Okay, now this is not at all meeting the condition, but still you will see it enters inside, and so next time onwards it will fail. Okay, one time all the statements are guaranteed to execute. That is do while. Same thing in while, it won't enter, right? Even at least one time also it cannot enter. That's the difference. Okay, so here I'm keeping that for your reference. Okay, here this text editor whatever I'm using is Visual Studio Code. Okay, maybe it's not that you also need to use this. You can use Notepad, Notepad++, like that. Going forward, maybe I'll show you how we use this Visual Studio Code. Okay, it is too early to explain about this. We'll see that. Okay, now I think we are done with this do while loop. The next type is for loop, right? So let's see. For this, the syntax for here only initialization, condition, increment or decrement, everything we give here only. And inside that, logic, whatever the logic you want to execute, that logic. This is the syntax. So let's see here. I'm removing this. I'm giving I value as 0. For the looping variable also we define inside for one, right? Here for integer I equal to 0, right? This is the initialization. I less than 10, this is the condition. I plus plus. And inside that, let's say system.debug, I'm printing that I value. Okay. Now how it works? This will be executed only one time. Only one time, right? First time I value it will assign as 0. That's it. It won't execute that one. Now it execute this. After that it execute 0 less than 10 as then it execute. After that it will execute this, right? So maybe to show you, so first this will execute only one time, and after that this will execute. After that this will execute. After that this will execute, right? Now I value will become 1, and after that this is like a loop. After this it will check the condition again, and it execute these things, and again it will increment. So here it will loop. Okay, these things will be executed again and again. Condition it will check and execute all the statements. Later increment, again check the condition, again execute all the statements like that. So this is how it will work. Okay. So just understand that. Now execute. Click on debug only. You are seeing 0 to 9. That is the for loop. Most of the times we use for loop. On day to day, mostly we use for loop. Okay. Here we are dealing with the index. So we also have the for each loop. Maybe it is too early to explain, but just some syntax for now, don't bother about that. So we have a concept called collections. As part of the collection, I'll explain about the assigning multiple values, how we can hold multiple values and all those things. Okay. For now, to explain about this for each loop, I'm just taking some freedom to define the list. Okay. For now, don't bother about this syntax. So far, what will happen? If you want to store a number, what we are giving integer, some variable name, and we can only assign one value. I want to assign 100 numbers, 10 numbers, something like that. If you want to hold multiple values, there is a collection called a list. Okay, we define like this list. Into this list, we will assign the multiple values. For now, syntax wise, no need to bother. Just to explain about the for each loop, I am keeping some values here. Okay. Later, you will know how exactly this syntax. Okay. So this is one list having 4 elements in this list. 4 numbers are there in this list. If you want to iterate over this, okay, using for each, how we give right side the collection, right? The variable which is having multiple values, we give that. Left side, so which type of collection? This collection is of type integer. Left side, we have to define integer, some name as a developer, whatever you feel, right? Like this. If you give like this is the list having multiple values. Left side, what is the data type of the list? We have to mention. This is the variable name. As a developer, you can give anything, whatever you feel. Now, what will happen? First time, this value is 100. Second time in the iteration, the value of the number is 300. Third time, 500. Fourth time, 200. After that, there is nothing to iterate. It will stop the iteration. So that's why we call this one as for each. But we don't use any keyword like for each, right? For only. Okay. So just print that number and see how it works. Okay. Just copy, execute. Click on debug only. We have 100, 300, 500, 200, all these things. Right? Skewing result. Right? So it's like that. So that's it. That is about the for loop. Okay, these are the conditionals. Controlling the looping statements. The next part is about input output. For now, we cannot discuss more about this. This one we deal more when we develop the web pages. Okay, so maybe very later, after a few weeks only, we are going to develop some of the web pages. For now, to understand as a developer, we use some keywords. Okay, get. In the programs, when you see get, you have to understand that it is for output purpose. Let's say there is a web page. If you want to show one of the variable value on the web page, so we have to use get. From web page, you want to give some input value and store into a variable. Say set means input, like that. For now, just keep this in mind, and when we develop the web pages, you will understand more. Okay, so that's it. These are the different types of statements. Now, once you practice this, tomorrow I will show you some programs, the programs which are already developed, and we should recognize, right? So mostly we can recognize, so why people are writing those statements and all those things, because we know these basics. Based on these basics, for now at this point of time, if someone show one of the program, by seeing that we can understand the statement purpose is, maybe this is for memory allocation. One of the statement, let's say arithmetic, logical. One of the statement, let's say they are comparing. There is a condition, there is a loop. All those things we can recognize. Okay. So tomorrow I'll show some programs, and so that we'll recognize those things. And later we discuss about OOPS concepts, object-oriented programming concepts. Apex is based on the OOPS concepts, right? So why we are saying Apex is similar to C++ and Java, .NET, Java, .NET, it is similar to that. Those are also OOPS based, right? All those languages supports object-oriented programming concepts. Apex is also supporting object-oriented programming concepts. That's why the syntax, the way we write the program, will be similar to those things. Okay. So now we know about only statements, how we write, how we can form a structure for these statements and keep together in a program. Those things you'll get to know when we discuss about the OOPS concepts, right? Object-oriented programming concepts. Tomorrow we'll start with that and understand. I think tomorrow we can start writing one of the program and understand how it works. Okay. Any questions so far? Anyone?
Sir, is Boolean data type a keyword or variable?
So Boolean,
Data type, true or false?
so that you can also consider as keyword, right? Because the Boolean can be either true or false. There is no way to assign with something else. Okay.
So it is not a variable.
That is, variable means whatever the name we give to the memory, right? When you define integer is like that, right? We discussed about some of the naming conventions, right? Variable name should not be the keyword. Okay. Now here string true, we cannot define like that. It won't accept. Right? This is also wrong. A string is, the true is a keyword, false is a keyword, null is a keyword. Null means nothing is there. Those things we cannot use as a variable name. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So any other questions, especially if you are from not technical background, are
Sir,
able to understand? Yeah.
for non-primitive data types, so we used object and some variable and some array kind of thing to store the object. So we don't use any identifier or anything here, like data type or anything.
So here, if you see, this is the data type, right? Contact is the data type, which is
Contact is object name.
Yeah. So object names are the, we can use objects as a data type, right?
Okay.
So decimal, integer, right? All those are data types. The standard object and custom object name also. Standard object, custom object also we can define as a data type. But
Okay.
these types we call as non-primitive. For these types, if you want to assign anything, for sure, by using new operator, we allocate the memory like this. Okay, this is not array. Okay, array syntax will be different. I'll explain going forward. Okay.
Okay, so it's again
This is
object
like
name,
a,
new and object name.
yeah, this is like a constructor. Okay.
Okay, okay, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions, anyone so far? Okay. So if you have any questions, maybe you can ask. Okay. So especially if you are not from the technical background, in case if you are not able to understand, if you can tell me, so where you are not able to understand, I'll try to explain, right? So one example, right? So what I'm observing, people are not knowing, let's say this is only for some non-technical persons. If you don't have touch with the maybe some of the technical things, okay? So we have our computer, right? You are using your laptop or computer. So we have hard disk, right? Hard disk capacity, right? Memory, hard disk capacity. People say 1 TB, right? 512 GB. We have RAM, right? RAM. We have 6 GB RAM or 4 GB RAM, like that. So what is the difference between these two? So why we create these things? I mean, those kind of things also, if you know, it is better. Okay. So memory, hard disk, whatever the 100, maybe 1 TB hard disk, whatever we have, we use to store the files. It can be maybe videos, images, and some of the documents you can store. Even though you turn off your laptop and again log in, you will see that information available in the memory. So RAM, 6 GB, whatever we use, this one, so what is the purpose of this one? When you open any application, if you see in my system, I opened VS Code, I opened this GoToMeeting, I opened Chrome browser, I opened many things. All these applications to run at runtime, some memory is needed. Okay, so this VS Code, this GoToMeeting, so all these things occupy. Right now, whatever I am typing is temporary. Right, if I close it, it won't be there next time. Right. So to hold this runtime when the application is running, to hold that information temporarily for execution time, this RAM will be utilized. Let's say when I open GoToMeeting, it needs 200 MB. Out of 6 GB RAM, it will take 200 MB. This VS Code, it needs 600 MB. It will take. Let's say if I open a game which needs 10 GB to run the game and to play the game, runtime it is going to load 10 GB of information to run that game, but our capacity is 6 GB, right? So our system will hang, cannot use that, right? It's like that. So here when we define a program, so whatever the memory statement I am talking, right? So this memory will be allocated at a runtime when the application is running, right? Sorry, this one. So when I say memory statement, it's not that while writing the program, after writing the program, it will be allocated that. When the program is executed, when the program is running, so that time, right? So whatever the memory statements we defined, as per that, the memory will be allocated, and all those allocations will happen at runtime when the program is executing. Once the program execution completes, everything will go off, right? It's like that. So just get to know these kind of things, okay, in case you don't know. Okay, so tomorrow, like this, if you have some confusion, right? When I say memory, maybe you don't know what is that memory. You can also ask, maybe if you don't want to ask here, just ping me in WhatsApp. I'll try to explain, okay? Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll also write a program and understand how we write the Apex program, okay? Thank you.